It's my pleasure on behalf of my colleagues and co-authors, and especially the first author, Alexander Walzer, to show you what we've done and present the study. Alex unfortunately cannot join here, but he was leading the research and kind of guiding us through the study. So what are we going to talk about today? We are coming here on the conference and we're all looking at how to improve our industry. And part of this is definitely, especially in this session, is automation. So we have automated in the past, we will automate in the future because we need to build more with less. We need to have high quality, and there is no way around automation, right? So there are kind of two ways, right, where we produce our elements, offsite and onsite. The session is on offsite production, but still we need to assemble them. So I would like to also look at this. And what we can do there, right, we can move from kind of the bespoke way towards more automated ways. We can invest in digitalization, we can invest in machinery, we can integrate more. There's a lot of things we can do. So what I would like to ask you now is, if you had 1 million euros and you were to invest in a company, in your company, and you would like to improve the company to build more with less, where would you invest this money? What would you do? Would you invest in digitalization? Would you invest in new machinery? Would you invest in some consulting, some training, right? So this is just a thought experiment. We don't have the money here, but just to trigger a bit of a thinking that basically we should always consider also the economics of what we're doing with automation. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. If we want to look at the money aspect of automation. And we can all summarize them within the idea of business models. So business models describe how we make money with what we're doing, right? And what value we provide to the customers. And beside these two things, I think most interesting for us here at this conference is basically two things: digital technologies and also the location. So where do we produce? And where do we then want to invest this money to the specific way we produce things? And what we had so far is basically these two paradigms, right? We have offsite construction. I'm sure a lot of you are working on these things or investigating this, and there's a lot of potential there. And we have on-site construction, which is kind of the bespoke way, which will also be still relevant even if a lot of these things are not manufactured directly on the site. And beside these two classic ones, actually, there is a new or recently rising topic or idea, which is using mobile factories, mobile on-site factories. So these are like mobile facilities, which are close to the site. We adapt them to what we need, and we produce in high quality close to the site. And we get some benefits from this. So the idea is we deliver the factory, we assemble it, and we then have kind of a good environment where we can produce what we need. And the benefits are clear. I mean, we can be more efficient close to the site, and we have suddenly a stable environment, which is independent of the weather or other things that usually happen on the site, like changing work zones or similar. And also the most interesting thing is suddenly we get an environment where we can digitalize much more than we can on the classic construction site environment. So we have researched this topic in our research project. That's just a bit of context, which was on smart mobile factory for infrastructure projects. And we investigated how to design such factories. It's a collaborative research, and Patrick, the chair today, is actually one of the PIs of this project. And what we've basically done there is we looked at mobility, smartness, and sustainability. So this project is already finished, and this is one of the last outputs or the most recent outputs. And what you could see, well, a lot of the technological aspects are solved. So we have an idea how to implement them, how to realize these factories. But this is not just research, right? So we also see that recently a lot of startups are looking into this field. They are proposing mobile factories with different degrees of smartness or different product designs to actually deliver high quality products close to the site. So you could say, so what do we need to do? Like everything is solved, right? But basically, one of these companies isn't existing anymore. So why is that? Is it the technology, or is it maybe something else? Is it the business model that they were running? And this is a question that we wanted to investigate in the study, because we see that these concepts sometimes work, and sometimes they're great ideas, but sometimes they don't. They either don't fit the market, or there are other internal reasons. So our research question was, which business models are currently emerging for smart mobile factories for construction 4.0? So what have we done in this study? Basically, we started with this business model canvas. This is a great way to describe the business value generation logic of a company. And we applied it to the SMF context. So we used this SMF specific business model canvas to do qualitative coding on academic resources. So we went through them and saw how do they define or describe how such a SMF would capture value. We also then applied a thematic analysis to basically map these different types or business models that exist there and create archetypes, which we can map from products to services. This is an established way of differentiating different offerings in business studies. So let me show you some of the results. We first started with describing this business model of the SMF based on these studies. So we looked at the customer segments, the value propositions, how they, like which channels they use to offer their products, the customer relationships, the revenue streams, the key resources, key activities, key partners, and also the cost structure. We then also mapped these or identified these 4 archetypes that you see here. So they go from product plus, which is very product based, to data as a service, which is a really service based offering. And I want to look at 2. I will just give you a quick example. You can find all of them in the paper. The product plus is the most close to how we do construction. For example, we saw that many of the literature, but also the startups you've seen there, offer products for a fixed price. They deploy the factory, they say we will build this product, and that's it. But also we see emerging is kind of as a potential future are these platforms where the mobile factory is a marketplace for much larger projects, but also more complex projects where different companies, organizations share these resources, they exchange data and actually have a very powerful production unit supplying their projects. So what did we do with this study, or how do we contribute to existing knowledge? So this is the first study that actually looked at business models of SMFs. And we contributed to this with this business model canvas, with the archetypes, and we also have 2 case vignettes where we looked at specific proposed mobile factories, and you can find this in the paper. What we also think is important, and you see in this diagram, that we should not just look at the factory itself, but also the intra and inter-organizational readiness or technology readiness. So if you have a super smart factory, that's nice, you can make nice scripts there, but can it integrate with the existing supply chain? So we suggest that there's also a different degree of fit with your SMF or with the SMF that you want to apply to the overall network or context in which you're working. We also suggest there should be future work. We see this as a starting point. We should look on specific cases, deep case studies where we could investigate the specific costs, also return on investment modeling to better understand what is a good business model for a smart mobile factory. So to conclude, we've seen that SMFs have been researched widely, and there are also a lot of industry initiatives to push them, to bring them to the market. So I think we will see more of them in the future. We also, in this study, mapped the value generation logic specific to the SMF to this business model canvas. And lastly, we suggest mapping these different types of business models, because there's not only one, that can be different, to the network or to the maturity within the network where this mobile factory will be applied. With that being said, I would like to mention the project within which this was developed and thank for the funding. If you're curious about the project, I recommend scanning this QR code and looking at our webinar. We have a nice webinar about all the work we have done in this project. You might also like these works. The lower one I will present tomorrow. And I would like to thank you for your attention.